Once upon a time, in a quiet little town, lived a boy named Salim. Salim was a wonderful child, kind, thoughtful, and a fantastic listener. He loved hearing stories, listening to the birds sing, and the sound of the wind rustling through the leaves. But Salim carried a small secret deep within his heart, a secret that made him choose silence over speaking. You see, Salim didn't like the sound of his own voice. Whenever he spoke, his voice sounded strange and unfamiliar to him. It wasn't loud and booming like some of the other kids. It wasn't strong and confident like the heroes in his storybooks. To Salim, his voice felt small, wobbly, and just wronga. So, he decided it was better to keep his words to himself. At school, this created a quiet world for Salim. He was bright and often knew the answers to the teacher's questions. His mind would buzz with ideas and solutions, but his hand would remain firmly by his side. The fear of hearing his own voice in the quiet classroom was enough to keep him from sharing what he knew. At home, it was much the same. His head was filled with incredible adventures and funny stories from his day, but they all stayed locked away inside his chest like treasures in a buried chest with no key. His family knew he was quiet, but they didn't know the real reason why. They didn't know about the secret battle he fought every time he wanted to speak. One sunny afternoon, his teacher, Mrs. Gable, announced a simple activity. "Today," she said with a warm smile, "I'd like each of you to read just one sentence from this book out loud." One by one, the children stood up and read. Some voices were loud, some were quiet, some were very fast, and some were slow. Then Mrs. Gable called his name. "Salim, it's your turn." Salim's heart started to pound like a drum. Thump, 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 it felt like it was going to leap right out of his chest. His palms grew sweaty. He slowly pushed his chair back and stood up, his legs feeling like jelly. He took a deep breath, looked down at the book, and in a soft, trembling voice, he read his sentence. "The sun peeked over the mountains." As soon as the words left his mouth, he sat down, his cheeks burning red. He kept his eyes fixed on his desk, waiting for a laugh, a snicker, or a whispered comment. But nothing happened. The classroom was quiet, and then the next child stood up to read. No one laughed. No one pointed. No one even seemed to notice anything unusual. But Salim didn't see that. In his own mind, he was sure everyone was thinking about his strange, small voice. He was so wrapped up in his own fear that he missed the simple truth. His classmates had just listened to his words, not the way he said them. The rest of the day passed in a blur for Salim, the memory of his own voice echoing unpleasantly in his ears. After school, Salim went to his favorite spot, a big old oak tree at the edge of the park. Its sprawling branches created a perfect, peaceful canopy. This was his thinking spot, a place where he could be alone with his thoughts without the pressure of having to speak. As he sat leaning against the rough bark, feeling the warmth of the late afternoon sun, he heard a delicate sound. Chirp, tweet, chirp. He looked up and saw a tiny sparrow perched on a low branch. It was singing its little heart out. Its song wasn't loud or powerful. It was a quiet Hentler melody, but it was beautiful. It was clear and sweet, and it made Salim feel calm. He closed his eyes and just listened. He thought to himself, "I love listening to this little bird. Its voice is so quiet, so small, but I think it's perfect." And then a question popped into his head, a question he had never considered before. Why do I like the bird's voice, but not my own? This sparrow didn't seem to care if its song was the loudest in the park. It just sang, and its song was enough. This simple thought planted a tiny seed of change in Salim's heart. The very next day, something happened that would change Salim's perspective forever. As he was walking home from school, he saw a little boy, much younger than him, sitting on a curb. The boy was crying, his small shoulders shaking with sobs. He had gotten separated from his mother at the market and was completely lost. People were walking by, busy with their own lives, perhaps not even noticing the distressed child. Salim hesitated for a moment. His first instinct was to stay quiet, to walk on by. The thoughts of speaking, of using his voice, made his stomach twist into a knot. But then he looked at the little boy's tear-streaked face, and his kindness took over. He took a deep breath, walked over, and knelt down. In his natural, gentle voice, he spoke, "Don't be afraid. Inside softly. I'm here." The little boy sniffled and looked up, his big, watery eyes meeting Salim's. He stopped crying. There was something in Salim's quiet voice, a gentleness, a sincerity that made the child feel safe. Salim stayed with him, talking to him in that same soft tone, asking his name and telling him not to worry. In that single moment, as he watched the boy and his mother walk away hand in hand, Salim felt something new and wonderful blossom inside him. It was still the same quiet, gentle voice it had always been. But Salim's confidence changed. He started to see his voice not as a weakness, but as a part of who he was. At school, when the teacher asked a question and he knew the answer, his hand started to go up, tentatively at first, and then with more certainty. When he spoke, his voice was still soft, but it was steady. At home, he began to unlock the treasure chest of stories inside him, sharing his adventures and funny observations with his family, who listened with smiles on their faces. Salim learned a very important lesson. He learned that the value of a voice isn't measured by its volume or its sound. It's measured by the truth and kindness behind the words. It's measured by the courage it takes to speak up when it matters. He discovered that a voice that comes from the heart, no matter how quiet, will always reach the hearts of others. And so, Salim continued to be a thoughtful listener, but he also became a gentle speaker. He understood that his voice was unique, just like the sparrow's song. It didn't need to be like anyone else's. It just needed to be his. Remember, your voice is a gift. It doesn't need to boom like thunder to be heard. Sometimes, a quiet whisper of kindness can be the most powerful sound in the world. It only ever needs to be your voice. Thanks for listening.